All right, so we are on day 101 of going through my journal, and here was the quote for this day. It says, "Start going the extra mile and opportunity will follow you." The question says, do you always go the extra mile? If not, when do you go the extra mile? So if you're following along, just pause the video and take a second to think about how you would respond to this, and I will tell you what I wrote. Okay, so let's see. Do you go the extra mile? I said, I feel like I used to go the extra mile in everything I did, especially when it came to work or short-term projects that I was really inspired / motivated to complete. It wasn't that I was purposefully trying to be extra. It was something inherent that I thought was normal. Now, like, thinking that I may have like ADHD, I feel like that's when people who have ADHD talk about like going into hyper focus and getting very like focused on something. And yeah, like with short-term things, I get really hyper focused, and it's the thing, and I can do really well on that. Or like, you know, if I'm scheduled for work, I have to be at work, I'm like, all right, I'm here, I'm gonna focus, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna get this done. But things that take like a long time, like long-term class projects, I've always struggled with that. Like long-term work projects, like that's the good and bad thing about my work. Really the bad thing for me that I've had to really work hard to get under control is completing these long-term projects and just staying motivated on them. It's like I'll find these cycles of motivation on them, and it's just such a struggle to get the stuff done. But now that I've got my habits, I'm doing a little bit every day, and things are getting better with that. So yeah, so said, it wasn't until I started noticing people's reaction to my work. Okay, so I thought it was just normal. I thought I was working like a normal person. And then I said, it wasn't until I started noticing people's reactions to my work, like how surprised and appreciative of the effort I had put in, that I realized that I was doing more than others. So yeah, I just thought I was doing like everybody else, but then like people's reactions to me made me think it was something different. And I've mentioned a similar thing before with like me being smart or whatever, is like I don't feel like I'm very smart, but going off of people's reactions to me, like especially when I was younger, I kind of picked that up, that people perceive me at least as being smarter than other people. So I don't know. I still don't feel that way, especially in my PhD. I feel like an idiot, but anyway. So I said, I just tried to do things the best of my ability. In time, it was something I took pride in, because I recognized that people see me as a hard worker, and so I kind of like took pride in that. It said it felt good knowing that I was different, that I did things better than most people. I wouldn't brag on myself or anything, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel nice to be praised and stand out for my efforts. And that's kind of weird, because like on the one hand, it does feel good to be praised, but I would rather be like secretly praised. Like I don't like the attention being on me. Like it feels nice knowing that I did a good job, but I don't like a lot of attention being brought on me for it. So like, I think I mentioned a while back that I had a teacher who would, after we had a test and she'd graded it, she would come in and she would put like, here's the highest score, here's the lowest score, here's the average, just to give people an idea of like what the scores range was. And there was a lot of times that I had the highest score, and I was glad that she didn't like single me out, because I didn't want people in the class to like, I don't know, I didn't want to be singled out for that, but it felt nice knowing that I had the highest score, that I had done well comparatively to others, I guess, if that makes sense. Then I said, looking back, I feel like there were instances where I put too much effort into things. For example, when I worked at Walmart, there were some people I worked with who put in the absolute minimum amount of effort, and I didn't understand why. my thinking was, we're here, we might as well get things done. But now I understand why. The company didn't value hard work, and they were working to the level that they felt they were valued by the compensation and the respect they were getting. Not being stressed, not being as stressed as I was trying to do things. You can't read it. I can't read what I said, but basically the gist of it is like, I was like busting my butt when I'd go into Walmart, trying my hardest with like the resources they would provide me to do a good job. And like, sometimes my roommate will get a little bit, I don't know what the word is, just like, he doesn't understand like when he goes to a business, like why things aren't done a certain way. And then me having worked at a lot of different jobs, I'm like, well, you've got to understand, when I worked at Walmart, I tried to do the best job I could. Like if someone came up and asked me a question, I would try my hardest to find the answer, but they literally do not train you to do a good job, and they don't give you the resources to be able to do a good job. We were always out. I mean, it was just like a mess. Like, you're always looking, they want you to change prices. They'll be like, do this. And you're like, I don't have labels. I don't have a telethon. I don't have this. I don't have that. So they tell you to do these things, but then don't give you what you need to actually do them or do them right. And then you'll get reprimanded for it. And, there was this one girl that I just didn't understand. We were hired at the same time. And like, at first I'm like, she just doesn't like try to do anything. Like, she doesn't want to learn this or learn that. And I was like, well, if I learn how to do these things, then if a customer comes up and asks me, then I can have the answer. But then later I was like, they're not pulling her to go, like, I worked on apparel, and I'm like, they're not pulling her to go up to the registers like they're doing to me. They're not pulling me to go work in jewelry and freaking pierce people's ears. I didn't know how to pierce people's ears. Do not get your ears pierced at Walmart, because they don't train the people at the jewelry counter very well to pierce people's ears. And I hated it, and I didn't want to do it, but because they saw that I was kind of like a hard worker, they were like, oh, we'll train her. So they were constantly calling me to come over and pierce people's ears, and I was just like, oh my God, I hate this. But the other girl that wasn't like showing this extra initiative, they weren't asking her to do all these extra things. We were both being paid the same, but because I was showing more initiative, they were asking me to do all this extra work. And I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I did move up and she stayed, but moving up a little bit, like, it just put more work on me and wasn't worth what I was compensated. And like, if you look around at most of the managers at Walmart, like, most of mine were like not happy, and just like, because I heard whenever they move you up, like, you're on salary and then they just work you crazy hours but don't pay you more. So anyway, that's what I've definitely changed my perspective on like going the extra mile, especially for like employers, because a lot of times it's not worth it. For my boss personally right now, I've started to put up some boundaries with her, just because, and I think she's recognizing that there's kind of a disconnect in what she views like my future plans and what I need to do, and what I view. Like, I would just like agree to go to all these conferences and work on all these papers and work on all these projects, because I just thought like, well, she's my boss and she's telling me to do this, so I'm doing this for her. But now I'm thinking, like, it seems like, no, she's trying to build my resume, and so I don't actually have to do all these things. It's not totally a major benefit to her that I'm doing all these things. She's doing this for me. But at one point, like a year or two ago, like the stress of like all of it just like really got to me, and I had to start like just being honest. And she's very good. Like, I respect her. And that's another thing, like, a lot of places, if the managers respect you, you'll do more for them. But if the managers like don't respect you and they're not nice and they don't value you, then why are you going the extra mile for this place? But I respect her a lot, and I try to do as much as I can, and I try to do a good job, and I'm glad that I'm getting things together to where I've got a routine and I can do a better job. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on the situation, but I would say if you're working minimum wage, like, don't go the extra mile. unless there's a benefit to you. And yeah, I totally understand like the quiet quitting thing that's going on, because these companies have just like taken advantage so much of these people that were like me, that would go in and try to, you know, go the extra mile all the time and just not compensating people for it. So anyway, that's what I have for that one. I'll be back with day 102 tomorrow.